in the 2023-2024 Supplementary Estimate C, and thank you for inviting me. We are requesting an increase to our expenditures, and allow me to put some of these requests in context. First, the modernization of procurement requires a simplification of our processes and to make it more efficient. The second priority is to provide quality services for Canadians, as well as to resolve pay issues for public servants and move forward with the next generation human resources and pay system. The third priority involves supporting our government's response to the housing crisis. To do so, we are accelerating the conversion of surplus federal properties into affordable and accessible housing. This year alone, through agreements with developers, the Canada Lands Company will enable the construction of more than 2,800 housing units, and over the next 5 years, there will be 26,000 new homes on its properties, at least 20% of which will be affordable housing units. And of course, my fourth priority is to continue working in close collaboration with key partners to implement the Canadian Dental Care Plan. To date, over 1.5 million seniors have become eligible for the plan, and oral health care providers have started signing up last week. I'd also like to update you on the work done by PSPC officials to answer questions about Canadian government procurement processes. First, I'm very proud and grateful for all the hard work done by public servants to protect Canadians' health during the pandemic. Whether it be by ensuring the supply of vaccines, rapid tests, or personal protective equipment, the work of these public servants at Canadians helped save lives and keep our economy running. I wish to reassure this committee that the findings of improper behavior, including fraud, are unacceptable.
PSPC suspended all delegated authorities for professional services-based task authorizations in order to implement additional controls to strengthen IT procurement and management of contracts. That same month, PSPC suspended all GC Strategies contracts with the Canada Border Services Agency. Since that time, I can confirm that every active contract with that company has been terminated across government, and the company is ineligible for any new contracts. Following further investigations, both PSPC and Shared Services Canada have also recently suspended Dalian and the Dalian-Coradix joint venture for current and future contracts. We also need to have more tools that can protect our supply chains from bad actors and respond to evolving threats. And that is why earlier today, I announced the establishment of the Office of Supplier Integrity and Compliance. That new office will enable PSPC to better respond to misconduct and wrongdoing and further safeguard the integrity of federal procurements. I also provided an update on investigations by PSPC that had uncovered several fraudulent schemes undertaken by subcontractors working on federal professional services contracts between 2018 and 2022. The department has revoked or suspended the security statuses of these subcontractors and is taking steps to recover illegitimate amounts billed to the government. These cases have also been referred to the RCMP. In closing, Mr. Chair, all of this work is part of the reinforced efforts of PSPC and all other departments to keep strengthening federal procurement and hold bad actors accountable for wrongdoing. Sur ce, il me fera plaisir de répondre.
I'd be pleased to answer any questions the committee might have. Thank you.
We've got about 13 minutes, so we'll start with 5 minutes. 5 minutes. We'll suspend for the vote and then come back with 5 minute for the opening. Go ahead, Mrs. Block, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our witnesses, Minister, for joining us today. Earlier today, Bill Curry reported that an internal review of federal contracting uncovered at least $5 million in fraudulent billing by private contractors. You, of course, confirmed this, and you held a press conference earlier today where you announced that 3 information technology subcontractors fraudulently billed on contract work across a number of separate federal departments, agencies, and crown corporations. The total of these illegitimate payments is, as I've said, almost $5 million. Your officials mentioned that 5 to 10 more cases are being looked into. Can you tell me how much money is involved in these additional cases?
Well, thank you for the question, and very pleased to note that you did follow both the story this morning in the newspaper and equally importantly the presser that I gave with President of the Treasury Board, Anita Anand. 3 things we announced briefly. First,
Excuse me, Minister. As you noted, I followed along the press conference. What I'd like to know is how much money is involved in these additional cases. Do you know, yes or no? And if you do, how much?
So I'll cut that to 2 pieces then. First, the announcement this morning, the $5 million, which, as you will have understood, is now under investigation by RCMP, and all appropriate attempts will be made to recover those dollars. And second, the fact that, as you also mentioned, there are other cases under investigation, and when more will be known, appropriate measures will be taken.
Thank you very much for that. Are these investigations expanding to any of the companies involved in the ArriveCan scam?
These are separate cases. The reason for which we're able to talk about them today is that since 2018, and more importantly, since the pandemic, a large number of procurement contracts are now electronic. We have invested significantly in electronic procurement, so we're able to use data analytics and the considerable data that has been accumulated to proceed to the identification of these cases and eventually to prosecute them in court.
Thank you. What does your department define as fraudulent payments? For example, were subcontractors paid for work that they didn't do?
Well, this is for these cases, which are different from the ones that you have in mind, different from the ArriveCan cases on which you have spent considerable time over the last few weeks. So these are separate cases, and as you would understand, and as would be appropriate, no, we can't talk about them in public, since that would undermine the important RCMP efforts that are currently undergoing.
So you can't identify the companies, but can you identify which departments are involved with these contractors and the fraudulent payments?
There are many of them. I think it's a bit more than 30 of them, and all of them are cooperating, as they should be doing, with PSPC to find out what went wrong and how we can prosecute those cases and recover the dollars that were fraudulently provided to them.
Can you tell me, are the public servants that were involved with these contractors and these payments being investigated at all?
The information that I have, and again, we need to be very careful because we wouldn't expect and we wouldn't want politicians to get involved in RCMP investigations. So that information is far from political interference. So we are we have high-level information that suggests that there is no wrongdoing on the part of public servants at the moment at which we're speaking, but that is obviously under investigation as well.
What about the public service? Any individuals who in the bureaucracy, in the departments that may have been working with these contractors, are they being investigated?
As we just said, everything is obviously under scrutiny, but as we speak now, it's the RCMP is investigating outside subcontractors that have billed fraudulently the federal government.
You said earlier today that there is no evidence that the fraudulent payments were a result of mismanagement. And so I guess I would ask then, are you aware if these subcontractors provided proof of work, or did departments simply pay without seeing that proof?
As we just said.
Sorry, I'm going to have to intervene because we're very short of time. That is our time. Perhaps we can get back to it next round or in writing. Mr. Baines, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for taking the time to join us today, and of course, of all of our department officials. The construction industry, my question is regarding the construction industry and how it plays an essential role in Canada's economy, employing nearly 1.5 million people. And of course, as you know, the region I'm from, Richmond, British Columbia, and the Greater Vancouver region is a large segment of this construction industry. So, in December of last year, the PSPC introduced the Federal Prompt Payment for Construction Work Act. Can you briefly explain the importance of prompt payment for the industry and how this legislation will achieve? I hear from a lot of construction industry associations on this matter, and it's very important to them.
Well, thank you, Parm, for bringing to this committee the important voices of your constituents. And it's obviously the case that many families, many middle-class families in your riding will benefit and will have benefited from the important activities of the construction industry. We need them and their workers to do all the right things that they are currently doing in BC and in your riding. Now, as you pointed out, there's great news on that. The Prompt Payment for Construction Work Act that is now in place is making sure that with that new legislation, it takes less than 28 calendar days for construction companies to be paid upon sending their invoice. This is remarkable because it's above the existing norm. That was a 30-day rule, which was already achieved in 90% of the cases. But now it's going to be all cases, 28 days and less. And that also incites and even demands that subcontractors are paid rapidly following the payments to contractors. So subcontractors need to be paid no more than 7 days after they have invoiced the contractors, and the subcontractors get the same treatment with the subcontractors. So it's all part of a series of positive actions that support the construction industry. They get paid faster for the important work that they do. That reduces all sorts of uncertainty costs. It makes them able to pay their workers more rapidly. So it makes things a lot easier for them. And we know that reducing the cost of constructing homes in particular in your riding is absolutely essential to address the housing crisis in Canada.
Thank you for that. And just to follow up to that, what impact will this have on federal infrastructure projects?
Well, this is another great point that you're making, because obviously, as we just said, constructing new homes in your riding is essential for middle-class families and many other families. It's also very important for the federal government to partner appropriately with the construction industry across Canada. We need their support to maintain, renovate, and construct buildings for the federal government. So again, they will be a lot more willing and a lot more able to work with the federal government if they know that they will be paid on time. And the subcontractors to those contractors will also be more willing to work with contractors if they know, again, that they will be paid on time by their contractors.
Okay. I'll go to a shorter question, maybe. Hopefully, if you can answer. Can you speak about the controls in place to ensure there's no political interference in the selection of companies that are bidding for contracts?
Well, this is so good, so important, and so good to point to. Now, there shouldn't be, and we don't want it to be the case, that there is political interference in the choice of which company will be awarded a contract. And that's why accountability requires ministers and their officers to detach themselves from political interference in the contractual arrangements, including the choice of the contractors at the federal government's level. We expect that to be the case, and that's what is also the case at PSPC and elsewhere in the federal government.
Thank you.
Great. Colleagues, we've got about 3 minutes left, so I will suspend. We will be back right after the vote. Customary, it's 5 minutes when the vote is announced, so we will be starting right on that. Minister, are you staying in the room voting virtually? Sir?
Sure. Can we ask for